Thank you, Ben. So, I have a question. What does quality mean to you? And I'm hoping we can make this a bit interactive. What's included in quality? Your bonus. Well, it definitely depends on quality. I'll give you that. Sorry? Happiness of the customers. Customer satisfaction, sure. Trust. Okay. Fulfillment of expectations. It doesn't need to do only what it says it should do, but actually it should do what we intend for it to do, whether we said so or not. The spirit of the expectations, the spirit of the requirements. Sure. What else? Pride. Wow, that's already definitely a high degree of quality. Let's contextualize it then and say quality within our systems and processes.
Quality assurance, to have quality all the way in the future as well. Not stop when you...
So it's quality today and into the future. You know, when they sell a piece of kit, somebody was presenting earlier about wind turbines. Wind turbines are going to be in the field for 40, 50 years. So quality in day one is important, but it's actually quality into the future. There are ships today on the ocean that have been on the ocean for well over 40 years. Airplanes that fly. So yeah, it's quality now and it's quality into the future. What else? Is security, sorry? Is security part of quality? Yes. Why? It's part of the expectation. How about conformance to standards? Is that part of quality? It's easier to name what is not part of quality. So you're basically saying everything is quality. Okay, I'll go with that. So not today, because today you woke up here, most of you, but most days, on the way to work, you stop on the way for a cup of coffee. And as you're sort of thinking to yourself about how your day is going to be, you effortlessly sort of take out your phone and try to pay. And in that moment, all of these different things come together. And you don't even think about it, but you expect it to work, you expect it to be secure, you expect it to be performant, even if a million other people at the same time are paying, you don't care, you still expect it to do it in an instant. You expect it to interoperate regardless of which phone you have or in which country you're in. Anybody, by the way, try to travel to China and try to pay with their credit card? Does it work? Right. So in other words, no. It's a different system. Now, there it's by design. But if you want to experience lack of quality, as a Westerner, try to go to China. It's very high quality and innovative as long as you're in the system. But if you just want to see what that experience feels like. Now, what happens if you're not very good, your eyesight is not very good? You expect it to be accessible. You, of course, expect it to be compliant, and your data, GDPR, and all of those things are expectations. Unfortunately, today when you went to work, something didn't work quite right. Maybe it's because the USB standard upgrade didn't go well. Maybe the Wi-Fi, maybe the NFC, maybe the interface to the bank maybe the interface to the bank card issuer, and so many other chains, and you don't get your coffee. Unless you have cash, of course. And this is not a payment-specific or consumer electronics-specific dynamic. This is true in energy. As traditional in industry, it's now being transformed in a big way, but as traditional as it gets, average house today has about 30 to 40 connected devices, all consuming various amounts of power, and your car, and somebody else's car. And the energy also comes from all of these sources. Now, in April 2025, I heard people discuss this. Who knows what happened from a grid perspective that was substantial? Does everybody remember the grid falling basically all across Europe? All started with, I don't know, were they saying that there was too much sun or not enough sun? Were they saying it was a cyber attack? Within 5 seconds, the jump in the voltage and the corresponding protection efforts that each country took meant that power came down for 55 million people across Europe. 35,000 people had to be evacuated from transportation devices like trains. 8 people died. And it took about 7 to 8 hours for everything to come back. And to this day, they haven't actually released the report that pinpoints this. And even yesterday, the gentleman who was sitting next to me was saying, they don't know. And he works in the industry. So the level of connectedness and the impact of conformance standard and security standards and other GRC considerations and good old functionality. Does everybody remember when we woke up one day and a cyber company, CrowdStrike, had crashed basically, and so much of what we take for granted stopped? You know what ended up there? They already know what went wrong. Do you know what went wrong? It was a good old-fashioned configuration testing bug. It was an edge case, and that's why only 1% of the clients that were running the CrowdStrike agent fell over. Only 1%. And in the sort of risk management and test design, they simply didn't get that far. You remember the 9.9999999? That was the 0.1. And the whole world, or a lot of it, came to a halt. Now, many of you, I'm sure, recognize this. Any person who's ever worked in technology, in IT, knows a version of this. I'm older than I look. First time I saw it was still in black and white. But it's always paraphrasing on the same theme. The user really wanted something pretty simple. How the requirements were heard versus how the project leader understood them, and so on and so forth. It's like the game telephone that kids play. And it's pretty funny when it's kids playing, but when it's project management and billions of dollars at stake, not so funny. My question is, why do we accept this as an axiom, and what causes it? And notice before with the genie question, I was basically asking what is stopping it? Why is it not working? And I have a theory, and it's the theory that I want to present here today, and we will see if you guys buy it. But again, let's make it a bit interactive. Why do we just accept this dynamic as an axiom? Why? What causes it? Well, we solve it by putting strong project management practices in place, and we solve it by documenting a lot. But this is still the reality? I mean, is this not a reality in anybody's organization today? So my question is why?
Simply because we are humans.
We're humans. We are the problem.
Even if I ask at the bar a coffee, I don't know what to expect.
You're Italian, right? Yeah, they don't know coffee around here. I get it. I sympathize, my friend. It is true. We're human. But I think it's more than that. I think that we are fragmented by design. All of these departments, quality, compliance, operation, we have suppliers, we have product, we have engineering, we have test environments, we have production, and there's people who own these areas. But who owns quality? Somebody here was referring to head of quality, QA, QE, quality engineering. That's only a sub-department under the CIO. The number of times that I have heard in the last 24 hours, oh, we have a department called cyber. They handle that. And a person in operations could say that. A person under the CIO could say that in most organizations still. In fact, you have CIO and CTO. CIO and CISO, kind of like that's where things meet. And below them, quite often, unfortunately, silos. And these silos were put there for good reason. Easier to manage, span of control. But in today's world, the recurring theme that you've been hearing in multiple presentations, and even the question, the genie question that I asked in the prior session is, if you could change one thing, what would you do? I would restructure the organization. I'm paraphrasing, and I don't want to misrepresent what the gentleman said, but I think what he said was change the organization. And I think that, is that gentleman here, by the way? No. So I think if he were here, he would say, yeah. He talked about the generations. That's definitely a challenge. But I believe that it's because we have different departments, different people looking at all of these things that we all defined as quality. And that user that didn't get their cup of coffee, they don't care why they're not getting their cup of coffee. They don't care if the issue was a security issue, a conformance issue, a functional issue, an environment issue, a manufacturing issue. They don't care. The CEO cares, but below the CEO, very few people's day job, if any, is it to care about all of these things coming together. And I liked what you said, that it's easier maybe to define what quality is not. And yet there isn't somebody who owns it. And these organizations are not talking to one another as much as they should. I think we can all agree with that as well. And that's the result. Something breaks, but the industry is recognizing this problem. Boston Consulting Group last year conducted a pretty large survey of senior IT leaders, people like the people in this room, maybe some of you even participated, and over 90% said that they were either actively looking at addressing these siloed solutions or already on the path to do it. So all the organizations recognize this at the top, not yet within the silos as much, but definitely at the top. And but what can we do about it besides sort of bring everybody together? So this is everything that Resilient does. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? You get it. I'm joking, of course. We do a lot of things. And in fact, we do so many things, you can combine everything we do in 4.5 quadrillion different ways. It's pretty complicated. Now, I'm not even sure it's quadrillion, but I think that's the word. But whatever that number is, that's 2.2 billion times more than all the species, plants, and animals on Earth. It is 4,500 times if you add all the bacteria and the viruses and all living organisms. It's 4.5 times more than on the synapses in the average brain. People here are, of course, above average, but still. It's only 22% of the number of the ants on the planet, so I guess it depends how you look at things. But what an end-to-end assurance model looks like is bringing these areas together under, for example, a business and brand assurance offering, which takes into account mobile and web testing, ETL and data warehouse, the relevant parts of test automation and load and performance, cyber incident response, because you are going to get hacked at some point. And of course, the compliance, the GRC. For hardware software companies, it is the Cyber Resiliency Act. If you're a banking financial services organizations, there's DORA. In almost all places, there's GDPR. And it's about the cyber strategy, and it's about the conformance at the device and the interfaces of the various devices. All of these things need to, and sometimes it's even the content itself, because low-quality content can have a big impact as well. So an assurance model, which is, of course, AI-powered, and there's a lot to be said about how much AI you can throw at this problem, is one example. A different one could be enterprise business operations assurance. And here, take your SAP testing with all the interfaces and the data conversions and the load and the performance and all of that. Add the cybersecurity. And not only pen testing, but also the remediation. And of course, the conformance, depending on where this global organization operates and where the products go and all of that, or the GRC considerations. And finally, another example, digital experience. From the performance and load to accessibility and usability testing. I think somebody here talked earlier about usability. Security code reviews, and the interoperability of the product. How does it play with all the other products? So we wrote a mini book that talks about these challenges. And I think that these challenges, from what we're talking with customers, resonate in virtually every organization. I invite you to take a look. And with that, I'd like to open it up to questions. The first one is always the hardest, as the prior gentleman said.
And thanks, super interesting. And just your thoughts on maybe an operating model to help break down those silos. So obviously Agile's here and multidisciplinary squads and all those good things. But yeah, your perspectives on maybe the how and ways of working to achieve the goal of being more connected.
I think that it starts with, as you said, Agile. You know, one of the cornerstones of Agile that was there right in the beginning, but actually almost never, most organizations never get there, is that everybody owns quality. And I'm not sure that I've ever actually seen an organization that actually properly got all the way there. It is indeed the multidisciplinary teams, but it also needs to be the multidisciplinary IT, OT, cyber, and joined MBOs. And that is before we change the ways of working. That end-to-end point that the gentleman before me made, and restructure the end-to-end. So rather than having so many specialists, and since the Model T, and Ford and the Model T, we've all learned to optimize the specializations. And it made a lot of sense, and it's perhaps one of the strongest drivers behind the success of the Industrial Revolution. But in an AI-powered world, what got us here ain't going to enable us to get to the next level. So it's incentives, MBOs. It's joint vision, and it's the people at the grown-up table, not only the people at the bottom, leading by example. And of course, working with the right sort of specialists that understand that level of complexity inherently, rather than, governance, that's this vendor. And cyber, we have a vendor that does that for us. And functional testing, we do it in-house. And load and performance, we have a vendor for that. All that sort of fragmented outsourcing also needs to change, end to end.
Fine, thank you. Really thought-provoking model there. I think it's a part of two point sort of thing. Why have we still not arrived here? I suppose this is quite evident, and it's not rocket science in some ways. And secondly, where, much to the previous question, where do we see that practically might actually exist in the organization? And I'm probably answering my question a little bit here. It's at the CEO level, which pretty much is the first level which everything brings together. So perhaps is there a board metric around quality we should expect?
I would argue the board already has some business metrics that are sort of proxies for quality. Customer satisfaction, renewal rates in certain environments are a proxy for. But to your first question, why haven't we got there? We didn't have to. Change is hard. Humans don't really like it. It took about 10 to 15 years for Agile to become most of the way people operated. It took only 3 to 4 years for CI/CD, continuous integration, to become what most organizations did. I don't know how quickly it will happen with AI, but I would argue that you could avoid some of these changes until now, and you cannot do that anymore. So what's going to make it happen? The fact that organizations don't have a choice, that some organizations are going aggressively in that direction, I think. Nothing sharpens the mind like the guillotine, as they say. So I think that's ultimately, and it's not only we do AI in order to reach business goals, AI is also a tool that enables us to address a lot of these complexities. And all of these areas can be AI-powered. And I love what the gentleman said before about rather than sort of AI in some function and then humans up and downstream, we have a bit of AI everywhere with this sort of AI-powered, human-led, human-in-the-loop, all of that. And these are all things that you can do today. You don't need to wait. From test script generation to test automation self-healing to test result analysis. And it doesn't replace anything. It's the evolution. We're still at the horseless carriage phase. You know, before there was the car, there was a horse carriage, and then suddenly the horse carriage didn't have a horse anymore. It had a motor, but it still looked like a horse carriage. And that's where we are now. And I think there's a few years of this. And as long as you are addressing all of these areas of quality, then you are already ahead of the game. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be better and faster than those other guys. Have another minute.